Hello, welcome to week 22 of the Stitch22 project. This is the final week and we're going to look at a stitch which you choose as being your favourite. And we're going to work it so that we use the front of the fabric and then we flip it over and continue on the back. And then when we've had enough of that, we flip it over again, a row or two or a cluster or two, and we flip it back. So I'm going to call it a back and fore stitch. My actual stitch of choice for me this week is a fly stitch. And the reason I've chosen that is because the pieces of fabric that I've been working on have all got a little zigzag pattern on them, quite an incidental pattern, which I've found and decided I'm going to work with this. You can choose any stitch you like, one that you particularly really enjoy making, and in any colour scheme you like. But one little hint I'm going to give you is to working in layers. When you're going over one set of stitches over another, one little tip is it's most effective to start off with a thicker thread and working down on next layer to a thinner thread and then to a thinner thread again, because you can make this can be quite a thin thread or stranded if you split them, or even down to a machine thread. So think of that, thick down to thin. So you're going to inevitably build up layers of your stitching by flipping over from back to front, back to front. And I'm starting to stitch into this little sample here, and you'll notice I've put it in an embroidery ring. Now this time is because some stitches that you make are best where you need both hands to control the needle and thread, particularly in a French knot or a bullion knot. So you might prefer to do this where you stitch your piece of fabric into a scrap piece of fabric. I machine stitched this on, and then you put it into an embroidery ring. And when you flip it over, you need to cut away the scrap backing fabric so that you have both surfaces to work on. Okay, now you can see I've started working on this one. I'm using my fly stitch. And I've been working with a perlé thread, and I'm going to go down into small, thinner threads as I build up the layers. I've worked on the front with these rows of fly stitch, and I've got my thread at the back, so I'm now going to flip my fabric over, and you can see the interesting echo effect of the stitching I've just done. And here's a row I did earlier where it is in fact I'm working on the front, as I'm going to be doing now. So you can see how you're actually going to build up layers of this, because you're inevitably going to put more threads than you would normally do. So a simple fly stitch, you can dovetail it into the stitching that you can see that you've just done, or you can ignore it and just do a random formation. I think I'm looking as if I'm into ignoring the original formation. But I'm still doing it in downward rows, so there is a method to my madness, otherwise maybe it could be chaotic. But can you see there's a rhythm to the stitching that I'm doing here? So there is a method to my madness. And you can enjoy seeing what little formula or restrictions that you give yourself. Maybe it's to always do horizontal lines, always do vertical lines, or even going into spirals or swirls or curves. But I'll just leave that there. It was quite enjoyable doing that bit of stitching. I'm going to flip it over onto what I now euphemistically call the front. And you can see that the stitches that have been formed by the back are overlapping that in a really interesting way. And I didn't realise that was going to happen. So this is a lot of serendipity, which is rather nice to introduce into your work. And you can see this little sample here, which I showed you earlier. I've introduced a new colour, and that's quite good fun too. So as the threads get thinner, they could be a slightly different colour. So you can build up your layers with thicknesses, thick to thin, colour dark to light as a hint. And here you can see the back, and I think that may be quite a nice effect eventually when I continue working on that. Another formation of my fly stitch, which you might like to look at, is this sample here, where I've decided to do it in radiating lines, like that. And you can see that the thicker thread has been started here with this woolly, well, it's not a woolly, but it's a soft cotton embroidery. Then I went into perle. Then I went into a lovely decor machine thread, and very, very fine machine thread. So that's the front. If I hold it back so you can see the whole piece. And then on the back, I'm hoping you think that looks just as gorgeous. Sometimes you might decide that the back is the front, or the front is the back. But it's really interesting to discover, and it's almost a sort of working blind, as it were. So you could call it blind stitch as well as back and forth. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that little project to work out yourself. So when this, as I mentioned earlier, this is the final week of the project Stitch22. So the number 22 week we're finishing now. For the moment, this is the last in the series. If you'd like to share your work on Facebook, please do. I'd love you to put it on there. And everybody else who's been working away, there's hundreds of people who've been saying that they're doing it. So please just put your work up. It'd be great fun to see. You could choose one or two samples which you like the best, maybe, or maybe you could make a lovely arrangement. Some people have been hanging them like bunting around their workroom, around their room, or maybe you've got a little pin board, or maybe you're having a lovely, maybe making them into a little sort of a book like flip, or with the tags that you're putting them on, a little bit of cardboard you're putting them on. If you can't post it onto Facebook, you might like to send me some images by email. And my email address is sian@distantstitch.co.uk. I'll say it again, Sian, S-I-A-N, @distantstitch.co.uk. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.